if you want to hit another level, if you want to go to another stage, you can't do it by yourself. You have to do it with people around you. And so for me, in my role here in operations and what I do with Pivot, I understand that I have to work with people in a way that really, for me, is pushing them to what they haven't seen before, right? So it's kind of what's in your hand.
It's just something that I live. It's just something that I live. Hey. It's just something that I live that this world don't live. It's just something that I feel that this world don't feel. I gotta keep it real. J.E.
Welcome to the Let Bob podcast. It's your boy Ant. We got a fresh episode today that's kind of sensitive to me. This is one of our clients from our bob&Co agency. He's representing one of our clients, I should say, Kingdom Fellowship, a good buddy of mine that was just with us in New York last week, Pastor Watley. So it's exciting to have you on and have someone from his team come on and talk with us today, Mr. Russell St. Bernard. So talk to us about what you've done at Kingdom Fellowship. Apparently you've innovated something very special at the church, and we'd like to hear about it, and then tell us a little bit about yourself.
Cool. Thanks for having me on, Brother Anthony. I am Russell St. Bernard. I go by Rev Russ. The guy you were talking about is my guy. It's my senior pastor, Pastor Matthew Watley. Big shout out, Kingdom Fellowship. And I serve here as the Minister Director of Ministry Operations. So if we were in the corporate world, I would just be over all operations. Because we're in a church, I'm over ministry operations. But pretty much everything you see online, everything you see on Sunday morning, all of the ministries that lead up to it, all of the graphics that lead up to it, all of those teams I work with, I have the pleasure of serving and leading throughout the week. But I've been with Pastor Watley now for 14 years. And so the church, Kingdom Fellowship, is officially 4 years old. But Pastor Watley started this work as a part of a church called Reed Temple AME. He was the North Campus guy, and that was about 17, 18 years ago. So when I came on board, they were about 4 years old already. They were in a high school getting ready to move into a building that we were going to lease, but we had to fit out. And he wanted a youth guy to come in and really, and that has been my past history doing youth ministry. I have books on it and other things around that. So I've been pleased to start the ministry with Doc after the 4-year mark. He started it. He and Lady Shauna, big shout out, my first lady. But they started it, and then I came again with him about 14 years ago and been able to really run pieces with him. So all of the areas report up to me because we joke all the time. There's not a ministry in the church that he hasn't done, and there's not a thing that I haven't done. So they report up because before we had the team, it was just us. Yeah.
That's good stuff. Interesting fact about Pastor Wiley. He was one of our first guests. When we started the podcast, man, like I came into the podcast industry green, man. I had never done this before. So he was he was actually our second guest, which was, kind of cool because the aspect he came from was really different. Rarely do you see a pastor that business oriented, right? And he had some perspectives that was pretty powerful. So I'm sure it's a pleasure to run alongside of him at Kingdom Fellowship. But more about you. I'm sorry. So you were telling me something about something called a pivot that you started.
Yeah. So I run operations here, but I also am a entrepreneur on the side. So I have, like I said, I came here to be the youth guy. So I have a company called After the Music Stops LLC. The whole purpose of that was God had blessed me when I started that company years ago now to really do well in youth ministry. I'm one of the youth ministry experts nationwide for a company called Outreach Magazine. I'm also one of the ministry experts for Givelify and a couple other new version on the Bible. I've been on their thing. But I used to do youth ministry for a while. And so I got books out on it, curriculum out on it. And I came here with that. And that's how I did the youth stuff. And then I've, transitioned into doing all ministries. But I also have what's called Ministry Pivot. So during COVID, I was pushed to start Ministry Pivot, which is a ministry that helps people think differently. Really, my tagline with Ministry Pivot is, this is your season of opportunity. All you have to do is pivot toward it. Because what happened so much from my perspective inside COVID and really after COVID is people look at their options as limited. And the truth is, your options aren't limited. Your options are choice, but your opportunities are limited. And so that's really where it comes from. And it's biblical. It comes from the scripture in Exodus, where God is talking to Moses, and Moses is telling Moses all that he has to do to free the people from slavery. And he says to them, how can I do it? And God says, what's in your hand? Right. And I think that there's so many of us that discount what we can do because we don't realize, we don't understand what God has put in our hand. And so Ministry Pivot is to help people understand what that is, to help people understand what that looks like, to help people understand what the true value is in that way.
No, that's cool, because that's interesting. You get to kind of leverage what you need to run operations.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, I do, all the way through,
All
all
the
the way through,
Because
all the way through.
people coming to you for answers, and probably coming to you, with challenges,
Hmm.
some possibly that they feel they can't, manage on their own.
Yeah,
So you're able to, leverage your pivot concept on a daily basis, which probably makes your ministry really strong.
yeah,
Because you not only can give the advice, you can see the manifestation of it as it, as your advice happens within others.
yeah.
So that means that, like, you work heavily with people, right? And I think
Dude.
in my journey, and what I've done in my life, that could be really challenging, right? Because
Hmm.
you're dealing with just so many different personalities and so many different perspectives.
Yeah.
If you think about your pivot ministry concept, like, what's some advice or some of the learnings or challenges you've had, trying to juggle personalities and perspectives on a daily?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, to be quite honest, is all of us are in people business, whether we like it or don't like it, right? So I'm gonna say a statement, and anybody that sees this that knows Rev Russ know that Rev Russ means this from his heart. Um, it's tough to be around everybody all the time,
Hmm.
right? But understanding that even though it's tough to be around everybody all the time, we can't do things by ourselves,
That's
right? The majority of what you can do by yourself is at a certain level. But when you want to have maximum impact, even the sports, right? Even the sports that are supposed to be like single player sports like golf, it's not really a single player sport, right? There's a coach, there's a team, there's practice, there's all of those things, right? We can see it in basketball and football and other mainly team sports. But the truth is, if you want to hit another level, if you want to go to another stage, you can't do it by yourself. You have to do it with people around you. And so for me, in my role here in operations and what I do with Pivot, I understand that I have to work with people in a way that really, for me, is pushing them to what they haven't seen before, right? So it's kind of what's in your hand. And doing that, excuse me, from the aspect of ministry, sometimes it's tough because people unfortunately have been trained to think that there's a limit to their life, right? That there's a limit to what they can produce, what God is going to allow them to have. And the truth is, those limits don't exist. But we just have to dial it in a different way. So yeah, I have the opportunity to train and to lead several people, and even now to coach several people. One of the things that I did more super recently was I became a Gallup Clifton Strength Finder certified coach. And so that has helped me because it helps. One of the things about coaching and strengths coaching is you help people focus on their strengths and not what we call your lesser strengths, right?
Yeah.
What we call the things that you aren't 100% great in, but you focus on what you are great in, and then you staff the other parts you are not great at, right? If you work at a church, if you work at a business and you got a team, then you manage the weaknesses, right? You manage the lesser parts. But if you don't have a team, if you're a sole, entrepreneur by yourself, then you staff the other parts. But the truth is, all of us have the opportunity every single day to achieve another level of success. The tension is, honestly, oftentimes we cap ourselves. And so with me, I'm able to kind of help encourage our team and our people to move forward and to do more than they've seen done.
No, that's good. That's good stuff. I think we see it often. Uh, the opinion is that someone got somewhere by themselves,
Yeah.
or you might have some individuals who think that they can do it by themselves, right? And so that's a common theme, in the community. I've had the pleasure of mentoring or speaking to young athletes several times. I have had the pleasure to speak with athletes that were high school, but really college and sometimes professionally bound.
Yeah.
But the thought of that is just them, right? Thinking that they it, right? It's
Yeah.
not the coach or the mom or the dad or the family who's supporting you and trying to guide you. They just don't get that you can't do anything by yourself.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in my teaching that, everybody needs somebody.
Yeah.
In fact, everything needs something. Nothing can operate alone. God just didn't create it to work like that. And the cool part is when you understand that principle and like you really get that, that's when you start having a higher probability and success with stuff you do.
Yeah.
When you stop trying to do it by yourself. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of cool to hear your slice of that same level of knowledge, that you can't do it by yourself and you need help. Uh,
Yeah.
I like people, and that's why I really like Pastor Wiley. Just spending time with him this past week, just hearing how he thinks and watching how he moves. From the outside looking in.
Yeah.
But he's a collaboratory thinker,
Yep.
right? To your point, golf is always the fail safe. Well, golfers, that's an individual sport, but it's not.
Nope.
It's not. You just can't see the people who help them, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
I never thought about that like because I hear people say that all the time because I'm a fan of team. I play basketball. And
Yeah.
so I know like I'm the point guard at the time, you had the 5 dedicated positions. It's kind of positionless ball now, but at the time I knew my role as a point guard, and
Yeah.
I center, my power forward, my shooting guards, and
Yeah.
we know if we need a 3, we're gonna go to Will over here. We know if we, need to get the ball up the court, give it to me, and so I think when you have that experience, kind of helps you. And I'll say it like this because I said this amongst some football players this past week. Being an athlete and being a team in a team sport, it trains you to be a crazy businessman. Like you can really dominate as a businessman because the characteristics of team is what you need to perform in this world, right? To your point, you've been with Pastor Wiley when y'all were a small team.
Yeah.
But with those principles you were leveraging in a small team, you just magnify them as you grow and you having a tremendous amount of success as you're doing that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of cool stuff. So um you said on the side, so I'm gonna get you for that because just because it's something that you're not doing full time, we ain't gonna say it's on the side. You a black owned business. Hey, look, I
Yeah.
ain't gonna be value business like that. No, you're a black owned business. It ain't
Yeah.
what you do on the side. It's something in addition to what you do with the church, right? So I'm gonna put that kind of
Yes.
respect on it. But what's your like vision for that? Are you gonna continue to grow it, or like it's just something that you're doing just out of passion? Like, what's your
Yeah.
thought?
Well, I think so. Let me jump back on the other side to the team piece. The team piece is important because you also need coaches, right? Everybody needs a coach. I always say all the time. My wife been married. Shout out my wife Erica. We've been married 18 years. I always say she's a marriage and family therapist. I always say you need and therapists are coaches, right? I think you need a pastor, you need a therapist, you need a coach. Right. And a lot of those sports, even like you play ball, right? Like, so even though it was 5 of y'all on the court and there was a head coach, right? You had a strength coach, you had a weight coach, you had a conditioning coach, right? You had a food coach, right? You had, and then that's just the coaches for the team, right? The players that we see on the court that we appreciate so much, they got the player coaches, the team coaches, then they got like a separate coach. Like they go with them on the off season, right? So a lot of what happens, and I'm saying it because a lot of what happens, like the golf on the field, is really the byproduct of what happened when the cameras weren't around.
Yeah.
Right. It's really a byproduct. And the tension, I think, comes a lot of the times when we want what we see on camera, but we don't want what we see when the lights are off. Right. We want what we see when everybody's taking the picture and the poster, but we don't want the weights, right? We don't want the times that you had to go to the doctor because you dislocated something because you're trying to hit that last. Like, we don't want them reps, right? But them reps make that shot, right? Them reps make that goal. And so I think that's a key piece that I think we all need to get. So I had to get that part out. But let me say, with Pivot, so and I say aside because I appreciate what the church does for me, but the church doesn't fool with Pivot, right? Pivot is what Russell has done to kind of develop what he's doing. But I want to develop Pivot in the space of leadership development and practical development for people that look like me, right? So I appreciate all of the podcasts out there. I appreciate all of the books out there, but I believe that your background, your history, and your experience also add value. And a lot of the podcasts and stuff that are out that I listen to, and I'm not going to name any, but I listen to, the hosts don't look like me, right? They don't, and it's not that what they're saying is wrong. It's that what I say bring a little bit of different, what I say brings a different hue to it, right? And I think that's the focus. So for me, Ministry Pivot, long term, I'd love to see it to see it syndicated. Ministry Pivot, we're going to start actually this year with Pivot University. So I'm going to start doing some training and some coaching directly around helping people pivot. There's some other products that I'm going to start releasing that will also help, from books to seminars to small group pieces that I'm going to help to tie in with Pivot. But then also, like I spoke about a minute ago, I'm now a certified strengths coach. And so being able to help people identify their strengths and lean into those strengths, which may cause them to pivot away from certain things or even pivot toward certain things. So for me, I see Ministry Pivot as the starting point of one of the opportunities that I think God has given me, uniquely built me to be able to help people to see their greater and greatest potential, if that makes sense.
No, that's good. That's good and necessary. Like we strongly believe that, like, you learn better when you're looking at somebody who look like you.
Yeah.
Like, it creates a different, flavor of attention, a different level of belief. You can get information from anybody, but the person who look like you can kind of understand kind of what you're going through a little bit better, and can put the message in a way that kind of resonate with you much better. So I like the fact that you're, focusing on, hey, look, I did it this way, but I didn't see a lot of people look like me doing it. And I got a flavor that I know people like me can benefit from. Like, that's the same thing we're doing with Bob from a technology side and a finance side. On my journey, I rarely got to, code with people who look like me, or in finance, you rarely, run it cross people who have the level of financial education that we have on our team. And so it's cool now to wear the t-shirts and wear the hat. So it's like, okay, when we're talking to the audience that look like us, it's like, oh, okay, I can do that. Oh, that's something I should look into. Oh, that's cool. Something, and not to keep referring back to this past week, but it was kind of a two mix. We had our summit, and then we had Michael B. Jordan does a legacy classic for HBCUs annually. He's partnered with one of our partners, which is Invesco. We're doing some stuff with. And the students that were there, I was noticing I had a blazer on. So I usually bring it all the way down. So I'll come out and just always have t-shirts and a baseball cap most times when I'm talking to a younger audience.
Yeah.
And this time because I was on a panel, I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep my blazer on. And after the panel was over, we met with the students. And one of the students walked up to me and she was like, "You look like you invest in the stock market." Blazer. And I was like, wow, like I appreciated her comment, but it was like, man, like even the blazer represent a level of intimidation to our audience, right? Our community. And so we gotta just change that narrative. We gotta continue to kind of put more people who look like us in finance, more people who look like us teaching proper leadership and strength, you are, and more people teaching technology that looks like us, so we can change the narrative, right? And so I'm always excited to talk to a leader in an industry that's commonly not heard about, or a leader who's cutting the fruit a different way, so that we can attract people who look like us, so we can make a dent in this narrative that's out there.
I totally agree. And I think that the key is enough of us jumping out and knowing that we can do it,
Yeah.
and knowing that even before we started, we can do it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I think that's one of the things that often, because I haven't seen it doesn't mean, I got 6 books written. I've helped probably the last time I stopped counting 24, 25 authors write their books and get it from start to finish, because it's not like it can't happen. Even though you haven't seen it happen,
Yeah.
it can happen. And so I think that what you're saying is totally key. And we have to know, right, the we that's you and I, and the we that's those watching and listening, that it's possible, and it may just start with us,
Yeah.
right? But it doesn't end with us.
Yeah. No, I like that, and I like to be an example of my philosophy, what I push. You know what I mean. So when I don't know something, I don't mind saying I don't know. Right. I have
Yep.
some books that I need to get done. Right. So I'm
Nice.
gonna hey, while we're streaming, I'm gonna ask you, what do I need to do to get with you to get my books
Easy.
published,
Yeah.
right? I got the content, but like, how do I push it farther? Right. It's something I haven't journeyed off into just yet. But hey, here's an opportunity for me. And I'm a man who try to take advantage of opportunities. So I love to get with you and see like what's necessary to, get your services or whatever
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to get on that journey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's easy. That's awful. We can do that easily. I got a team that helps me do. So another thing is create, right? So like even the shirt I'm wearing now says "We are not the same." We are not the same. It's a brand called Riot Starter. So like so let's just again, I'm a creator, right? And I think everybody's a creator.
Yeah.
But at the church, right, we started a brand. Again, big shout out King Fellowship, Pastor Wiley. We started a brand called Kingdom Apparel, right? And we just started it, like just. And now, we're blessed to have several thousand people come to the church on Sundays, and it's wild to see people wearing the shirts. It's wild to see people that I know when I travel, that's in LA, and others wearing the shirts. We got people who are in Africa wearing the shirts, like wearing, and it's not just the regular church shirt, but like even the shirt I got on now. Again, it's a young man that I know. Big shout out, Pastor Gerard. He's in Memphis. He started this thing called Riot Starter. I helped him with his book. And the whole thought is that we're not the same. Like we're in this world. We're not of this world. We're supposed to stand out, supposed to be a light, supposed to be what God has called us to be. But when you create, it doesn't have to be corny. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a whack thing. It can be something that's super dope. And so I rep it. And so you should rep yours. Like we should all do it in a way that identifies the uniqueness that God created us to be. You know what I mean? And so I think that that's super dope.
Nah, as you see, I got mine on. I keep some Bob something on, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm a big fan of that. Just because I've never been really heavily into like designer clothes or anything. And so when I learned I could, basically create my own jeans and my own, have my own suits tailored and things of that nature. Like I embrace that. I'll spend for my name, my company, my dream, and God's purpose for me. And so I try to encourage others. I actually have on one of my partners. This is his company, Draw Capital.
Okay.
I try to just rep brands of either Black-owned businesses or business partners of mine. I encourage Black-owned business, so I try to rep whatever I can get my hands on. And I would like one of those "We're not the same" shirts. If
Okay.
just tell us where to go. And
Yeah.
that, because I just feel like our culture is really strong. We're really impactful, influential with so many things mentally that we got to change the narrative to tap in it more. Powerful, powerful culture. So we just want to let. But looks like we're about out of time here. So I want to say we thank you for coming on and sharing insight on what you're doing. I definitely want to get with you on the books. You're talking to the right one. By the end of the year, I'm gonna have my books out because you're gonna help me, and I'm gonna hold you to it. So let's get that going.
I'm with it.
Do you want to shoot a shout out? Going to tell them how to find you, any socials or anything like that before I wrap up?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on, Anthony, man. I appreciate it. So ministrypivot.com. You can catch me on Instagram. Rev Russ is on IG. Pastor Russ on Facebook. But ministrypivot.com is where you go, all of the stuff there. And if you're looking for a church, big shout out my church, Kingdom Fellowship, AME Church. If you're in the Maryland area, if you worship online, you can check us out too. Kingdom.global is the name of our church. And my pastor, again, Pastor Matthew Watley, is a dope dude, man. And super excited for all that God is doing in this season for me, but excited what God is doing in seasons for you all as well, as you pivot toward it, man. Dope.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Rev Russ. And follow what this man is saying. Kingdom Fellowship is the truth. Pastor Wiley is he funny and he own it. So if you don't have a church, go out there and check them out. I think they're cool, man. This has been another great episode of Let Bob Podcast. You can always find us on all social media at We Are Let Bob. You can find me personally at I Am Let Bob. Thanks, and we're out.
It's just something that I live that this world don't live. It's just something that I feel that this world don't feel.